2, 1.
Welcome to Made for More Living.
One small step for man.
With Johnny Jennings.
Kick the tires and light the fires, Big Daddy.
The fastest and most exciting hour of news, events, and real estate in Northern California.
And this is a fact that was proved.
Powered by eXp Realty. Online at madeformoreliving.com.
Does everybody know what time it is?
Get ready. Here we go.
So, Matt, remember in 2015 that balcony that collapsed?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Absolutely. A lot of people, didn't a few people die from that?
Yep, some people, yeah. And so basically, there are still ramifications. So what was crazy about that deck is the building was not old. Like, it wasn't built in like the 1800s. It was a relatively new building.
But wasn't it a beachfront property?
No, it
wasn't?
Well, I think it was Berkeley.
It was the Airbnb. So there was a beachfront property that was an Airbnb in Malibu where they rented the place and had a party on the back deck and it collapsed.
That's what I remember.
What was the Berkeley one, though?
The Berkeley one is what was the foundation of the law that was actually passed. So the building was built in 2004. It was a new stucco building. The collapse happened in 2015.
Okay.
It's student housing. It was a 21st birthday party.
Yeah.
And 6 people passed away.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's crazy. So, by the way, we're talking with Steffen. He is from the Good Life, right?
Yes.
He's with Good Life. Yeah, inspections. They do. They're our preferred vendor. They do. Like, what don't you guys do?
Yeah, that's what we want to know.
Everything.
What don't you do? Do you base turkeys? Because ours was really dry this Thanksgiving.
I don't know if you want us basting a turkey, but you do want us rebuilding your house if it burns down to a fire. You do want us inspecting your house if you're buying or selling a house. We do all things reconstruction. If a tree falls and hits a house, we could come in and dry out the house. We can do any reconstruction associated with the house. This secret sauce, very quickly, we don't subcontract stuff. So we do stuff with all of our own employees. It's a really, really big deal. That is a rarity because people try to avoid workers' comp and overhead in business in California.
Yeah.
So when we are out at people's properties, it is our people that are going in there. They're our own employees that have been vetted. They're not day workers.
Yep. And there's that built-in accountability because it's like, no, they got to show up tomorrow.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So what we're talking about, though, is this balcony change in laws, right? And so there's SB 721 and 326.
Yes.
And it sounds like a whole bunch of like legalese, not that exciting, but this is going to have huge ramifications like immediately for people who are living or looking to purchase in HOA communities.
Correct.
You mind explaining a little bit about what's happening?
Yes. So there's 2 laws. SB 721 affects multi-unit properties, investment properties.
So 4 units or more, 2 units or more?
3 units or more.
Okay.
But that represents 8 million people in the state of California.
Wow.
People don't realize that. So in a state of 40 million, 8 million people are living in apartments.
Yeah.
So, and I didn't realize that until I started driving around town. We are an inspection company. We started specializing in these inspections 3 years ago. We inspect roughly 1,000 of these properties a month in the state of California.
Wow.
We have our own engineering team. We have a plan on how we do this. And when you drive around, go up or down in any city in California and look at all the apartments that are around. Same thing with the HOAs. So there's not a lot of inventory in California right now.
Yeah.
Definitely in an affordable price point. Mm-hmm. So right now, a lot of people are actually looking at condos. So it's 3 or more units, SB 721 for the multi-unit situation, SB 326 for the condos and the HOAs.
So how is this impacting condos? Because you guys inspect a lot of properties. You're seeing firsthand the ramifications that I didn't realize how much of a veneer stucco was. Like,
yes.
When you peel back the stucco, it is nasty underneath. So what are you guys seeing?
So the stucco actually creates its own microclimate. I'm from New York City, and we build things out of steel and brick and concrete.
Men are men.
We're men are men. And not sure about the women, but the men are definitely men. Women are women. So the stucco surface can actually contain, so the property that collapsed in balcony, you would be shocked. It looked like something you would see in Cabo. It's stucco, it's Mediterranean style, it's fancy, it looks great. If there is a water leak there, even a small water leak, it can accelerate the process of the rot. So that balcony did not collapse because of poor building codes or weight. The balcony collapsed because of dry rot.
That's a good point. the balcony was not overweighted. Like there wasn't too many people on it.
We overbuild things. We build things 2, 3, 4 times stronger than it actually needs to be. It's a maintenance thing and it's a rot thing. So if that was a traditional deck that you see at someone's house in Sacramento, Carmichael, Granite Bay, where it's pressure treated lumber and redwood, that deck lasts 20, 30 years and then you have to do some repairs to it. After 30 years, you probably replace it. But you could see what's going on there. On these stucco buildings, and this applies to houses too, in Elk Grove, in Rockland, in Roseville, in Granite Bay, in our region, stucco is everywhere. Yep. And then in the nicer the house that you have in suburbia, oftentimes they put decks on the back of the houses. Mm-hmm. As an inspection company, I've been inspecting, a state licensed inspector for 33 years. That's the number one exposure in a real estate transaction. Yep. It's the number one big ticket item that we see. There's dry rot on every building that's over 5 years old. The dry rot's $500 to fix, $1,000 to fix, $2,000 to fix. You could get it credited in a real estate transaction and deal with it later. Oftentimes the dry rot is in a non-structural part of the building, right?
Yeah, it's like siding trim.
Siding trim, the outside eaves, something like that. Yeah. In this case, we're talking about structural damage. So the water gets into these deck areas, and it does not matter what the price point is on the house. It doesn't matter if you paid $500,000 for a brand new house in West Roseville or $12 million for the house in Serrano. It does not matter. The water will find its way in there. You may or may not see the leak that's happening there. You have to have a great inspection done. You have to know what the warning signs are, like water stains or cracks in the stucco. You have to further inspect it. This is really important for the traditional market. You have to further inspect it. People look at the termite inspections. They look at the termite reports for dollars to negotiate.
So you showed me some photos of homes. Like I was looking at these balconies. They looked perfectly fine.
Yes.
And then you just drilled a little hole, sent a scope in.
Yes.
Like, oh my gosh, this is not structurally sound anymore. You peel it back, and basically the stucco was all that was holding this balcony together.
Johnny, that's exactly it. With my 33 years of inspecting experience, we go out to properties and we can't see the framing, and per the law, we have to see the framing. We don't even have to see evidence or damage of evidence. We don't have to see stains or cracks. It is within the law. You have to drill through the stucco and take a look at the framing. And one time out of 4, when we drew through that stucco and take a look at the framing, there's water staining there and there's compromised wood to the point where it can collapse. We were inspecting a property in Davis. They were having a quinceanera outside on the deck.
Quinceanera, yeah.
I'm not saying it right.
I've been to my fair. I'm from California, not New York.
Yes, yes. I'm Italian New Yorker, and I'm not good with it, right?
Yeah.
I didn't have an avocado until I was 40.
Oh, so gosh, you missed out.
Yeah, a little weird. We were at this quinceanera. We were at this inspection, and we were inspecting it while they were on top of the deck. Every piece of wood under that deck was completely rotted, and the deck had dropped 4 inches.
Whoa.
So we couldn't tell until we put a laser level on it because it was a larger deck. We literally had to ask the party to go inside, put caution tape up. We had to put caution tape. This is a condo. We had to put caution tape at the unit down below. We had to re-support it, and we had to contact county code enforcement.
Oh my gosh. And they had no idea. They're having a party.
Yes.
It looks fine. Was there any staining, any indication?
Nothing. No staining, no cracks. We put a scope in there. We drill a hole that can accommodate like a pen or a pencil. We have this fancy camera that goes in there and scopes it. And that's how we found the damage.
Got it. So you're giving the deck a colonoscopy.
Yes,
basically.
yes,
Okay.
yes.
Awesome. So let's just talk about, people are saying, okay, now I'm a little scared, a little nervous, whether you have a single family home and that decking is wrapped in stucco, or whether you're in an HOA community. At least with a single family home, nobody's going to potentially pressure you into moving or fixing that deck immediately. You can budget for it. You can wait for
Yes.
You can wait till you have the funds. But that's not exactly what's happening with the HOAs, right?
Correct.
So can you talk a little bit about like why, if you were living in an HOA community that has decks right now,
Yes.
like specifically condos, how this is going to impact you?
In an HOA, in a condominium community, and again, I am not a HOA specialist at all. I am not an attorney. but I've been working around the HOAs for decades, and I understand a little bit how they work. I've sat in front of board meetings and association meetings. It could get very sticky, very aggressive at the end of the day. Yeah. You have all different types of people that live in HOAs. You have 25-year-olds that are farmer reps that are making $250,000 a year, and then you have retired people. So HOA communities, condos specifically, it feels like it's a diverse community because you got people that are going up in life that, don't need a lot of space and they don't want to do a lot of maintenance, or they're on the backside of life where they're kind of downsizing in life.
Correct.
And I think that's what actually makes the association meetings a little bit difficult at times, because you got young people and you got some older folks, and they don't necessarily, there's a generation or two in between, and they don't see eye to eye on things like maintenance. Today, people want it hard and fast, and they want it now. They're not patient, right?
Yeah.
So with this, a HOA community is supposed to get a reserve study done every 3 years. I believe every HOA is its own LLC. It's a corporation. And if you think about the state of California, we're talking about 3 or more units. So pretty much every HOA community that is a corporation is worth $1 million.
Yep.
$1 million is a lot of money. You need to get insurance on that. There's multiple insurance policies that go with these HOAs. They have a main insurance policy. They have specific insurance policies from the sheetrock in. Then the HOA has its own policy for the outside and the common areas, right?
Yeah.
So what happens with this law right now, they get this reserve study done, and the reserve study helps people budget. So every year they budget. Every 3 years they get the reserve study. And the reserve study guy says, you're going to need roofs in the next 10 years. Ballpark cost is $2 million. You should start budgeting it. Mm-hmm. You're going to have to do your asphalt in the next 5 years. Start budgeting for it. No one knew about this deck and balcony thing. No one talked about the deck and balcony thing. It is literally active 31 days from today. So 31 days from today, we have...
What date does it go live?
January 1st of 2025, okay. SB 326.
Okay.
So there's homeowners associations right now that are going to lose their insurance coverage January 1st of 2025 if they are not compliant.
So what does compliant look like?
Compliant looks like getting an inspection. First and foremost, getting an inspection. You have to do a 95% sampling of the community.
How much?
95%.
What?
Yes. You're looking at the majority of the decks and balconies out there. There's a coefficient, there's a mathematical ratio that we put into our app that tells us what the percentages are, but 95% at the end of the day. So we get the inspection done. Anything that is found, oftentimes it is maintenance items, right? That we identify maintenance items, caulk, seal, paint, everything's cool. It's a couple $1,000s, not the end of the world. Every once in a while, when we drill in, we find damage, but it doesn't mean that it's structurally compromised. It means that there's damage there. And then every once in a while, and it's happening more and more now, where you're getting structural damage. If there is structural damage there, it is considered unsafe, and it has to be reported within 15 days to the local building department.
Wow.
The policing agency for this, the law was not written well. I don't want to pick on the politicians, but someone sat in a cubicle somewhere and wrote this law. They didn't investigate the other laws that affect this and licensing stuff, right? So there is no policing agency for this. It falls back onto the counties and the local jurisdictions. The people that wrote the law said that they wrote the law because they wanted the counties to have flexibility in how they did it, right? Mm-hmm. And what we feel like right now, what it seems like at the end of the day, the building department doesn't have any policing jurisdiction. They give it to their code enforcement department.
Okay.
So code enforcement officials are going to be going out. The fines on these, if a property is found to be compromised or not compliant, is $300 to $500 per day.
Per day.
Per day. There are different cities in the region that are very aggressive with their code enforcement.
Sure. I could easily see this as a revenue opportunity for counties and cities, for sure.
Sir.
They're gonna jump on that.
Man, so if you're living in an HOA community and you have decks,
yes,
especially decks that maybe are wrapped in stucco that have not been inspected in recently,
correct,
in the last 3 years, you may have an issue with this. So you can see your one of two things happening, or both, right? HOA costs increasing dramatically.
Correct.
Because they now have to raise funds to make all these decks safe.
Yes.
So if you're used to a $300 a month HOA fee, it may jump up to $400, $500, $700 a month.
Correct.
Which nobody wants. Or is there also a possibility that they may have to come up with the cash up front?
Yes, and that's what's happening now. There's a thing called a special assessment. We just recently learned that vernacular of special assessment to where they're trying to get compliant within the next month or so by just getting the inspection done. Heaven forbid there's damage there, because that has to be done too in the next 30 days, which is absolutely impossible.
So as soon as it's identified, it has to be rectified.
It has to be addressed. If it's compromised,
gosh.
if it's structurally compromised, it has to be addressed within 120 days.
Okay.
But if you're trying to get compliant by January 1st, that's not happening.
Yeah.
If you work with now these local building departments and local code enforcement people, if you're proactive and don't hide and communicate well, they will grant you extensions.
Okay.
I have gotten different HOAs in the community, more than 30 extensions in the last 6 months or so.
Okay.
If you run and cover from it, if you hide from it, they will start hitting you. We have an HOA in Sacramento right now that's being fined $35,000 a week. There is a large HOA in Sacramento that has a lot of wood siding to it, and they're getting fined by the county $35,000 a week.
Wow.
Every week.
Well, the county's happy, I guess.
The county's happy. Some of the counties and cities are, I think they may budget around this.
Are you serious?
So they're very, very aggressive on their fining. So they're generating big revenue at the end of the day. And the other cities and counties aren't super organized, if you will. So right now, I don't know how much training they were doing on the law itself until they realized that after January 1st of 2025, if there is a collapse, say 6 months after January 1st, attorneys get involved. If someone gets hurt, heaven forbid, someone dies, everyone gets named in a lawsuit, right? And the second question, whoever owns the property, the HOA, and then they're going to ask, the attorneys will ask the question, who's responsible for policing this stuff? That comes up. And then it's going to come up that the county or the city's responsible for policing it. Although they can, they have some insulation from things like that, it won't stop them from being added to the lawsuit at the end of the day.
And named. Wow. So what I'm hearing is, so what if you're listening to the show and you are thinking about purchasing in an HOA community that has balconies, make sure that you understand what it is you're buying.
Yes.
And if that special assessment has been done and if the fees have been updated. If you're looking to sell, understand what you may be getting yourself into and make sure that that is disclosed to the potential buyer.
100%.
So they don't come back and sue you.
100%.
The downside, it just really is unfortunate this is happening like condos, because like you said earlier, a lot of people are purchasing condos when they are first, that's the first home they buy.
Yeah.
Or that may be one of the last properties they own. And budgets are tight. And now all of a sudden you're getting hit with these special assessments. The thing, if I lived in a community and I knew that this was happening, I would be tempted just to put my house on the market and sell it.
Yes.
Oh, that's actually pretty interesting. You're right.
But everybody would probably be tempted to do that before property values potentially drop.
Yes.
And so if you are living...
You have to disclose something like that?
I
or you
would.
probably don't do the... Is that something that would need to be added to the inspection list when you're selling your home?
So what do you mean? What would be added?
Like your regular pest inspection, all that kind of stuff. Inspecting the balcony. So
yeah, if we have Good Life, yeah. Not some other fly-by-night type of inspection
Right,
company.
sure. So they inspect the balconies, and then obviously that's something you have to disclose to the buyers that, hey, there's issues with the balconies. That's going to have to be fixed right away.
So that's
not something that can wait down the road. That's something they would have to fix. Even probably before. I wonder if they would be able to sell the house before that.
Depending on the severity of the issue. But here's the thing. That you're talking about a seller proactively going out and spending money to inspect a balcony. That's not likely to happen. It's something we suggest. We're big fans of doing pre-inspections.
Right. So if they assume there's some issue, they probably wouldn't do that.
But most sellers would. Most sellers don't do that. It's the buyers that do it. And so now all of a sudden you're in escrow. You're trying to buy your next property. You're in transition. And now all of a sudden you're hit with a $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 request for repairs that you were not budgeting for.
Right.
That's especially at condo price points. We're not talking about a $2 million home. We're talking about a $300,000, maybe a $450,000 property. and now you have to pay 10% out.
Correct.
Like that's a lot of money.
Correct.
So
we saw this happen recently in the multi-unit market. People are buying buildings. There's a property in Rancho Cordova. It generates great cash. We're seeing more problems on the multi-unit buildings and apartment buildings because it's investment. Some of them haven't been painted or caulked in 2 decades, right?
Yeah.
There's going to be damage there. And the HOAs, typically, they're pretty good about painting, caulking, and doing maintenance. They try. Someone is aware of it at least. So oftentimes we're seeing not as much damage on the condos as we are seeing on the apartment buildings. So we did an inspection on this 3-building complex with 60 units. We found $1.5 million in damage. And the owner from the Bay Area said, you know what? I'm not fixing it. I'm going to sell it. I don't want to deal with it anymore. Got it. Awesome. Put it on the market. They got into contract. The buyer went to go get insurance, and the first question they asked is,
Sure.
Is it SB 721 compliant?
Right. Oh my gosh.
oh boy.
Couldn't get insurance on it.
Oh, so he couldn't even sell the property.
Correct. Went back and got it fixed.
Oh my gosh.
And
Was forced to get it fixed pretty much.
We're already having challenges with insurance companies in California.
Yeah. So did he keep the property or did he have to
Ended up keeping the property.
Okay.
Ended up fixing the property. There's all types of loans that you could get on the back end to restore the property. They own 20 properties collectively.
Okay.
And I think in retrospect, I think they're happy that they kept the property. Good Life did the repair work on it. It turned out amazing. We have the ability to keep the tenants in the property. Good Life also has the ability in an HOA to keep people inside their properties. It
Wow.
doesn't sound like a big deal, but a lot of these places have common spaces with stairs and landings with condos on how they get into their units so they don't have to be displaced.
Love that.
That is a big deal because people don't figure that into the budget. So they get a budget of $100,000 to fix a walkway, but they're not considering the other $100,000 because the job is going to take 4 months. Could take 6 months depending on planning and permitting. And, you know, if they can't stay in their place, they have to relocate. Sometimes it could stay with family, sometimes not. Hotels, food, pets, kids, all the things.
Yeah.
So considering all those other things on the back end, it could be cumbersome.
Wow. Well, when we come back, we're going to talk more about what makes Good Life different than your average inspection company.
Awesome.
So, Mike, you are passionate about planes.
Oh, yes.
You love to talk about it any chance you get.
I have more planes on my phone than I do people and dogs.
There you go. But, you know, that's understandable because you're passionate about that. Our friend Johnny Jennings with Made for More Realty, you know what he's passionate about? He's passionate about real estate. And that's the kind of guy you want when it comes to selling your home or helping you purchase a home. In fact, recently he helped Jessica and Brian. They were selling their home and retiring out of state. They needed to make the most money possible because it was part of their retirement plan. They were able to get them an offer $35,000 above list and help them make a smooth move out of state.
And that passion is used to your benefit because the Johnny Jennings team with Made for More Realty will sell your home on average 27% faster and get you a 3% higher purchase price. And if there are ever any problems, you can trust that the entire team is working to solve them. That is why they've been voted #1 team in Roseville for the last 3 years, and they have over 800 5-star Google reviews. You expect more, get more with Johnny Jennings and the Tom Daves team at Made for More Realty. Just Google Made for More Realty today and get more for your home. License number 1982171.
This is Made for More Living with Johnny Jennings, powered by EXP Realty. Online at madeformoreliving.com.
So we are on today with Steffen from Good Life Inspections, and we are talking. So, Steffen, I get questions all the time.
Yes.
From buyers and sellers.
Yes.
Why is this inspection company identifying issues with the property and then providing a bid? It seems like a bit of conflict of interest there. Like, how do I know that they're not just saying things are wrong so they can line their own pockets with repair fees?
Correct.
What would you say to that?
The state of California designated years ago, decades ago, that you have to get a WDO license, a wood destroying organism license. Mm-hmm. And it's incumbent upon, which sounds fancy for a termite inspector, right?
Yep.
Pest inspector, termite inspector. You have to get this license, and it's incumbent upon them to find dry rot and insect infestation, but almost more importantly, why is it happening? What is the conducive condition? Identifying the why. When you have subterranean termites in a building in Rancho Cordova and you realize that the stucco, because back in the days they built differently, they did the stucco and then they graded the soil back. So it creates what's called a faulty grade. The termites love the faulty grade because it's kind of wet and the soil's wet and it's like a freeway for the termites to get into the building. If you do a termite treatment there and you don't correct that faulty grade, 3 years after you paid $1,500 for a termite treatment, you're going to do another termite treatment. And then 3 years after that, you're going to do another termite treatment.
So rather than just inspect the symptom, you guys are going after the root cause.
The cause.
Okay.
You have to, and if you can't identify what the cause is doing a termite inspection on a property, you have to legally say, I can't tell, I'm recommending periodic inspection. Happens in Sacramento in the winter all the time. In the summer and the winter, we go under a property in the middle of July and we see water stains going all the way up the foundation, but it's not wet. We don't know why it's wet. You go out to that property in November and December, there's 7 inches of water under the house. Is that catastrophic? No. Can it create some mildew or fungus? Yes, at the end of the day. Keep an eye on it. It shouldn't be a deal killer. Getting back to your question, the state mandated that we have to identify what's causing it. It is more important to identify the cause than the net result. So contractors do not have this stipulation on their license. Contractors cannot say something is dry rotted. No one can say something is fungus damage or dry rotted except for a termite inspector in the state of California. Okay. And the spirit behind the license, we have to get continuing education. Much like a realtor, every 3 years we have to renew our license. We have to get 16 hours of continuing education.
Got it. And so if somebody gets a bid either from you or some other inspection company and they feel like, I'm not comfortable with the outcome, this seems like it's a little exaggerated for the situation.
Yes.
They can go out and get a second opinion, right?
Yes. Love the second opinions. And that's where working with companies like Good Life that do extra communication. This happens in real estate transaction. There will be company A will go out and they'll have a bid and they'll have dry rot for $2,000. They're not correcting what's causing the dry rot. They're just fixing the dry rot.
Yeah.
Company B will go out and they'll have a bid for $5,000. They are redoing the roofing that is defective as well as fixing the dry rot. And then you'll end up with company C will go out there and they'll find a place in between those two places to value engineer, address the leak, and do the dry rot repairs and get them across the finish line.
Got it. And so going back to that communication piece, it's really important to understand, are you addressing the symptom? Are you over-addressing the root cause?
Yes.
Or is there some happy medium here that works for both the buyer and the seller?
I say 75% of the time people fixate on the number, and I get it. I've bought and sold a lot of properties, a couple of investment properties, so money is key. That's the challenge, though. We're pressed when we're trying to close a transaction in California a month, 15 days. 2 months, no one has a chance to process. They buy on emotion and justify with reason, right?
Correct.
So they're just looking at the dollars and they see the number of 5,000 and then they start budgeting around it. It's important to have that communication and say, hey, that 5,000 could be 15,000. Buyer beware. Make sure we get on the same page. 80% of the time, it's not going to be the additional 15,000, but at least have that communication. Make sure your vendor has that communication out loud, because if there's a problem, Johnny, you and I talked about this.
Yeah.
If there's a problem in any real estate transaction, the first person they call is the agent.
Yep.
The agent discloses. People don't hear. We're so pressed on time, they're not listening to what's going on. Yeah. And then they call and they say, hey, did you know? And you're like, hey, guys or gals, we talked about this. Has to be documented and disclosed.
So what I'm also hearing you say is, for example, in real estate, there's a term called buying the listing, where an agent will go out, meet with the home seller and say, hey, let's say the house is worth $500,000. All day long, it's very cut and dry. They'll go, I can get you $550, maybe $575 for this property. And then I would go out there and say, hey, we'll get you $500 because that's what the home's market value for the home. People are more inclined to go with the person who's telling them the numbers they want to hear.
Yes.
How do you experience that all in your industry? Or
it is the number one challenge that we have in our industry. The termite inspector, so it's so interesting. When we go out to do an inspection at a property, we will have a home inspector that goes out, that is an employee. The home inspector is like Superman. They have a cape on. They're good looking. They find all the stuff, and they're saying, hey, find all the stuff that's wrong with the building.
Yep.
The termite guy...
Like a 50-page report.
It's a 50-page report.
Yeah.
There's pictures in there, and they're like, find everything. We're going to negotiate around it. It's all good.
Yep.
Oftentimes, the termite guy finds the non-sexy things. The termite guy is crawling through the mud, the cat poop, depending on what part of town, hypodermic needles. It is a tough, dirty job, depending on where you're at. It is tough. I've been poked 3 times by hypodermic needles.
Are you serious?
I've been bitten by snakes under houses, all the things, right? Lamb Park.
Oh my
Lamb
gosh.
Park. So it is not an easy job, and then you have to deliver that information, and no one wants to hear that information. If someone's going to spend $2,000, $4,000, $6,000, they want a 70-inch TV.
Yeah.
They want some millwork done inside the house. They want to redo the bathroom. They want to redo the kitchen. No one wants to spend money underneath the house on something that can't be seen. Mm-hmm. They definitely don't want to spend the money if they're selling the house. They're like, I don't want to drop any money. I don't want to spend any money on
It's
house.
worked for me for the last 5 years. Why do I have to pay?
Right. Correct.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And so if somebody is... I would just encourage listeners not to just look at the numbers. Like, look at what at the track record of the company you're going with, and at the entire scope of work, and ask questions like, hey, what if this happens? How are you confident in this bid?
Yes.
So that way you know exactly what you're getting into. So you didn't budget for $2,000. They open up the siding, and then all of a sudden it's $10,000.
The great agents we work with, like the Johnny Jennings Group, the team, has those tough conversations on the front end. You have to have those conversations on the front end, because if they don't come up and you end up on the back end, we touch 1,000 properties a month in the Sacramento region. That is a lot. We end up in arbitration or mediation. I don't have the proper vernacular. As good as we are as witnesses once every 3 months. And that's doing everything the right way.
That's not bad, though. That's like 3,000 homes, and that's crazy.
It's absolutely nothing, all because everyone sticks their head in a hole and they don't have the tough conversations.
Yeah.
They just want to say, hey, they say, I could get you X amount of dollars. We could do this. We could do that. And then things come up during the inspection process, and then it gets shoved across the finish line. Mm-hmm. And that puts everyone in a compromised position.
So Valor and I have worked with you guys, like Jen specifically,
yes,
for years now, and there's tons of different reasons why we enjoy working with you. The one that stands out to Valerie is the 2 things that stand out is, 1, the speed. Like, Jen gets things done fast. If we need an inspection done quickly, Jen can make it happen.
Yes.
And then 2, when dealing with repairs and things like that, Jen is an advocate.
Yes.
There's other inspection companies where it's like we're trying to communicate with the contractors, and they just don't care. It's just a one-off job to them.
Yes.
But with Jen, it's a relationship.
Yes.
With Good Life, we have a relationship.
Yes.
It's not a one and done.
Yes.
But there's so much more that your company provides, like, beyond just the speed and the relationship. You mind touching on a couple of those things? Like, for example, you have the engineers in-house, right?
We are a faith-based company.
Oh, that's awesome.
When our team rolls up to the house, if you're a husband or wife and you're leaving for work and you see our team roll up to the house, you feel safe. The people feel safe. You feel okay leaving for work and leaving your 6-month-old baby with the grandma home. Mm. Our guys are just built differently, man.
They are. Your guys are great.
They are so clean cut. If someone pulls up to the house with groceries or packages, which was a problem during COVID, by the way, our guys drop their tools and carry the groceries in.
Way to go.
They don't know how not to be polite. Jen, who you're referring to, is Jen Finley. She is our secret weapon.
She is.
We process a lot of inspection calls a day, and they will give oftentimes a standard answer. They offer amazing customer service, but sometimes the schedule says, hey, we're a week out. You make a call to Jen. Jen gets it done the next day. Jen sometimes can get it done the same day. Jen will call.
That's true. She's done it at least 3 times.
She will force me under her house in a suit if necessary to crawl through mud to get it done. It is a relationship business. We've been around this long because of our relationships.
Yep.
So the other office we have our own in-house permitting and planning team. We have our own in-house engineering team, which is a really big deal.
And so explain like why it's a big deal, because you guys are able to just get done faster, right?
Excellent. We get it done faster. We have the best relationship with Sac County Building Department, Sac County Code Enforcement Department, Sac City, Placer County, Roseville, Rockland. All of them know who Good Life is at the end of the day. being in control of the narrative of the job. We'll go out in a bidding situation where someone has a property that is bid in a real estate transaction for $150,000 to do repair work. We come in with our own engineers and we give a bid for $60,000.
Wow.
There's an opportunity to value engineer and re-engineer their job. It makes the engineer's job really hard. It makes the permitting people's job really hard, but that's what they're paid for at the end of the day.
Yeah.
If it saves the customer money and if it gets the job across the finish line, that's what we're all about, taking care of the customer. So in-house engineering, the relationships with planning and permitting. We pull permits for other construction companies because they can't.
Wow.
They could demo stucco. We do work at other contractors' houses, other termite company owners' houses. We'll remodel their bathrooms. We'll do additions for them because they can't.
I've
do.
seen some of the work you guys have done for, I think one lady had a fire in her house.
Yes.
And it was gorgeous
Yes.
after you guys were done.
Yes.
So it's just so much more than just crawling in the mud and snapping photos and
Yes.
identifying issues. You guys can handle it from inspections all the way to
Yes.
reconstruction.
Inspections through the life of the property. We inspect it, we diagnose it, we can maintain it. We could turn, it's hard with the lack of inventory. It's hard to find a house that's perfect for every family situation. So that's not a home.
Yeah.
You have to have the vision. As an agent, oftentimes you need to sell that vision. Hey, you're looking for a 4-bedroom, 3-bath. This is a 3-bedroom, 1-bath. I think we can do this, but there's just no inventory out there. But Good Life can turn that into the proper situation. Get in, get established. 6 months down the road, we come out, we design it, we engineer it. They come with up with the cash, and we could turn it into a home for them.
Yeah, put
with
some
our own
sweat
teams.
equity in, and all of a sudden you bought it here, and now it's worth way more.
All day long, we do it every day.
Yeah. So thanks so much for coming on this show. You guys
Awesome.
are like an integral part of the Made for More team, and so we value your time. Thank you for coming out.
Thank you
Can
for
I
having
ask
us.
one more
Johnny.
question?
Yeah, go ahead, Matt.
Because we've been talking so much about the dangers of stucco.
Yes.
Is that something that is just taboo now? Nobody uses stucco. You guys don't use stucco. You recommend?
We have to use stucco. I dislike stucco, but it is, I mean, it's Mediterranean. So you go to Florida, you go to Arizona, you go to California, and it is all stucco. You go back east and you look at vinyl siding, it's hideous. It's ugly.
Yeah, I'm not a fan.
But it lasts.
Yeah.
You could pressure wash it, right? The idea behind stucco at the end of the day is the stucco doesn't order the waterproofing to the building. There's paper and wire under it. So actually, those stucco walls can leak, and they're kind of designed to leak at the end of the day. But the paper and wire are what stop it from. Paper and wire is what stops the water from getting in there. You have to maintain the stucco. You have to put it in correctly. It has to be applied correctly. So you have to make sure the flashing detail is right, the paper and wire is correct, and the stucco. You have to make sure it's done right and maintained.
So how often should somebody inspect their property if they have a stucco home?
Every 3 years.
3 years?
Every 3 years. People think that stucco doesn't have to get painted. You have to caulk, seal, and paint stucco.
Okay.
Even acrylic stucco at the end of the day. And it doesn't matter if you're in a $500,000 tract home in Elk Grove or a $5 million home in Los Lagos, stucco leaks. The same guys that are doing the stucco work oftentimes in the tract home is the same guy that's doing the work in the really fancy home. People think because it's a $5 million house, it's the same process. It's the same thing. Just when there's a leak on the big home. And actually, it is my opinion that there's better quality control on the tract homes than there is on the custom homes.
Oh, really?
I believe that the quality control where you've got different trades and then you have a project manager and a quality control manager that's watching each stage of the construction. In custom builds, oftentimes the actual builder or contractor's in a cubicle somewhere and he's leveraging money for deals, right?
Yep.
He just has the subcontractors doing the work. If there's not someone managing the subcontractors, then you have challenges and problems.
Oh, good to know. Never thought of it that way.
Interesting.
Well, thanks so much for being on the show today.
Awesome.
Big takeaways. If you want to reach out to Good Life, you can just Google them or go to madeformorerealty.com, and we're happy to reach out to and put you guys in contact.
Thank you, Johnny, for having us. Have a great day.
Matt, you would think in 2024, with Yelp and all of the reviews and stuff you can find online, finding someone you can trust would be a lot easier.
You would think that, wouldn't you?
I would, but really the best way to find someone to trust is word of mouth. A friend that you trust telling you who they use, which is what Betty experienced. She used Johnny Jennings and the Tom Daves team at Made for More Realty to help sell her home, which had a really tough situation. But Johnny Jennings and the Tom Daves team were able to figure it out. So when it came time for Betty to sell her mom's home to move her into a retirement home, of course, she called Johnny Jennings, and they were able to find the perfect buyer for the home and negotiated a quick as-is sale, which they can do because they can get you a guaranteed 3 cash offers for your home.
That's right. Before the holidays are over, it's true, believe it or not, they can perform miracles no matter what kind of condition your home is in. And you're thinking, oh, Matt, you haven't seen my house. Believe me, Johnny has seen every piece of property. No need to do those costly repairs, have people coming by your home for showings or staging or cleaning or organize. At least 3 cash offers on your home in as-is condition. How do you do it? You reach out to Johnny Jennings with Made for More Realty. Just Google them, Johnny Jennings with Made for More Realty, and get more for your home. License number 1982-171.
This is Made for More Living with Johnny Jennings, powered by eXp Realty. Online at madeformoreliving.com.
Matt, did you see this article that came out about potentially the hottest market in 2025?
I sure did. That's why I forwarded it to you.
The hottest market is supposed to be Dallas-Fort Worth, Texas.
The market that you loathe. You can't ever imagine. You think they should send the worst criminals in America to Dallas-Fort Worth. That's how horrible it is.
I don't think it's that bad. I just think,
when you were on your tour of America with your wife, trying to figure out where are we going to live, where are we going to put down roots. You stayed in Dallas-Fort Worth for at least one night, right?
Yeah.
And you didn't like it. You're like, this is terrible.
So honestly, I thought we'd end up in Texas. I thought we'd end up in Texas or Tennessee.
There you go.
Like that. Like I had a positive outlook on it, but when I got there, the weather is it's not California. It's humid. And it's just
some people like it because it's the hottest market for 2025.
Some people like it. You know what? We'll help people move out of California, no issues. We'll help people move into California, no issues. But in private, Valerie and I like to joke that anybody who leaves California, you know what we call them?
What?
Quitters. We call them quitters. So they're a bunch of quitters. So Texas can have the quitters. But speaking of quitters, there are a lot of people who are still thinking that they don't need a real estate agent. Just don't see the value in the real estate agent.
Can we go back real quick, though?
To quitters?
No, yeah. Why do you think Dallas-Fort Worth is poised to be the hottest real estate market in the nation for 2025? Is it because of the new president, Donald Trump? That's just a lot of people want to be in that area during his presidency.
I think Texas has a lot of good things going for it. Aside from the weather, have you been to Dallas recently?
Not recently. I went there a couple years ago.
So it is just crazy, the growth. It is absolutely insane
because of a lot of Californians.
Because of Californians, people in other states moving there. People Texas is just growing significantly. The number of people living in Texas, and they're business friendly. There's a lot of great things that Texas has going for it, but for the typical, blue collar person moving from California to Texas, you're not going to see a huge change in your overall financial budget moving to Texas.
Oh, because that's what a lot of people assume. Hey, I'll sell my property, which has a lot of equity in it, and go pay cash for something in Texas, kind of like what the Bay Area folks do for Sacramento.
Yeah, so we're Texas for Bay Area people. In Texas is Bay Area for Sacramento.
Right.
But here's the thing too, is that it's the costs. You just got to be. The property taxes are different. The structures are different out there in Texas. And I'm not a Texas native. I'm not a Texas expert. I just know I visited, and it was not the state for me.
And they don't have sushi. McCooney has not opened up a sushi restaurant in Dallas.
You gotta have McCooney's if you're gonna move anywhere. But I am surprised at how. So what makes me nervous about areas like Texas, like Dallas, that are growing quickly, just look a little to another part of Texas, Austin. Austin was growing crazy fast, and then all of a sudden things shifted, and now they've seen some significant price corrections in their market. So if it's growing fast, if it's outpacing what is normal for that market, just keep in mind it could also swing the other way. So are you buying in the peak, or are you buying in the valley, or where are you in that buying cycle?
I think a lot of people, though, are not even looking at the financial situation. I think a lot of people just want to move out because of the politics or the restrictions. Holy cow. Look at the segment we just did with Good Life, just talking about the chaos of some of the laws that just make it crazy to live in this state because of the legislation and all the different stuff. And some people just want to be out and they want to be done with that. So they go to Texas, and that's not to say Texas doesn't have their own things.
Texas has tons of its own things. Like there are a lot of people out there that businesses that will not do business with Texas because of how the state government has treated them. And so you hear about stuff in California, you hear about stuff in Texas. I would just say, if you're making the move, make sure that you have some backup options in place. Like, hey, we're moving to Texas not just because of the politics. We're moving to Texas because of the politics and because it has good schools for my kid. And because I have a good job. I wouldn't move to Texas because, hey, we'll figure it out when we get to Texas.
Yeah, correct. Because you've seen people, and I know people too, that have moved there and it just wasn't what they hoped, and they moved back.
Yeah, they moved there. They thought it would be one thing, and it ended up being something completely different. And they moved for one reason. Maybe it was just the political reason, and they realized, hey, you know what? Politics aside, life was better in California. Or life was better in North Dakota or wherever, Washington, wherever you're coming from.
So maybe that's one reason why you need a good agent to give you that kind of advice, right?
Oh my gosh, yes. So I have these conversations regularly. I'm always, working with clients in and out of their homes, and even family members are asking me, like, Johnny, why do we need a real estate agent? I find the house online. I can just the paperwork can't be that hard.
What are they calling that? An iBuyer? Is that what they're calling that? Because I think I saw an article in the New York Times asking the question, do you need a real estate agent anymore? Are folks just becoming iBuyers, which I guess that means internet buyers?
Internet buyers. So iBuyer, when I think of the term iBuyer, it's typically somebody like an Open Door, an OfferPad, like an institutional type of buyer that's coming in and purchasing the home for the home seller and giving them flexibility. It's basically an investor. It's a cash offer.
Right. Okay.
And the Open Doors of the world are trying to make it that way, but think about so Open Doors program is designed to then sell the property. They're not keeping the property. They're not the end user. They have to buy it and then sell it, and so they have to buy it at a price that makes sense for them to resell. So you're paying for the convenience. It's a more expensive option than a traditional real estate agent, but you're paying for convenience. Now let's say you're purchasing a property. You can log on to some of these companies. They have apps, and you can go in and access the lockbox if the home's vacant. You can go in and you can do all this without a real estate agent. What people don't understand. So, for example, there's a story. Maybe you've heard it before. Many variations of the story exist, but the one that I'll tell is this guy owned a big ship. He owned a yacht, and for whatever reason, the engines weren't working on the yacht. And so so he's like, we need to get it fixed. Hire the best guy. Let's get him out here. So this old timer comes out, hops on board, goes down to the engine compartment, spends about 15, 20 minutes evaluating everything, pulls out a little ball peen hammer, hits the engine, and the engine fires right up. He didn't fix anything. He didn't have to do any parts. He didn't have to do any of that stuff. And so he gets an invoice. The owner of the yacht gets an invoice, a couple days later for $250,000. He's like, what the heck? I don't know why. Why am I paying $250,000 for this repair? Like, I need an itemized invoice.
Right.
Show me why it's $250,000. And so the guy said, 1 hour of my time, $50. Knowing where to hit the hammer, the other $250,000, where to hit.
Oh my gosh! I don't think I've heard that story. I love it though.
Because that's what the realtor brings in. So you're like, hey, I found the house. I know how to do all that stuff. What value is the realtor bringing? You know
where to hit the hammer.
I know where to hit. And so I know how to negotiate. I know how the contracts should be structured. I know good people in the industry. So are you working with a quality home inspector, or are you working with somebody who, is just going to tell you what you want to hear, or maybe scare you out of the home? Are you able to good lenders? So for example, our in-house lender, the JJ Mack team, they have a special program right now that people with I-10 or people with low credit scores or people who own small businesses that maybe are financially challenged but have the revenue and able to purchase a home, but just maybe credit challenge, their taxes aren't necessarily up to date. They have a special program that allows you to buy a home. I have that information. That's my hammer. That's the knowledge, right? And if you don't align yourself with a quality real estate agent, then I get it. It's not you're not seeing the value there. But if you work with quality, you recognize it. 47% of realtors in 2023 did not sell a single home. 1 in 2 did not sell a house. 98% of realtors sell fewer than 1.5 homes a month. So if you line up 100 realtors, that's 98 of them. So if who you're interacting with, I get it why people see and say that they don't need a real estate agent, because they're interacting with pretenders. They're interacting with hobbyists. They're interacting with people who say they're a realtor but aren't really doing the business. Would you consider yourself a mechanic or a doctor if you're seeing 1.5 patients a month? Like, are you a doctor? Is that somebody I would want to bring my family to and have my kids checked out by? You got to treat real estate the same way. A real estate agent is going to not only save you money but make you money in the long run.
I like that. I think the finding where to hit the hammer is oversimplifying what real estate agents do. It's actually a lot more complicated and takes a lot of finessing and work and thought and process. And it's not just going and smacking a hammer in the right place.
And it's always an evolving thing. So people are like, hey, I've sold 3 houses. Okay. During what time frame? Oh, about 35 years. You sold 3 houses in 35 years. Great. I sold 3 houses this week. Okay. Over your 35-year period of your experience, contracts have changed, policies have changed. What's being paid by who has changed. Your experience is totally irrelevant compared to what's happening right now.
Right.
And so I'm not discrediting you do bring some knowledge to the table. You do have some wisdom, some life experience, and some even real estate experience because you've bought 3 houses. But that experience is very different than somebody who's doing this day in and day out.
Right.
Even an agent that's selling 18 houses a year is going to have a different perspective than somebody who's selling 18 houses a month.
Sure. You could go to court and represent yourself, and that
Correct.
would get the job done.
Yeah.
But when you want a professional that's going to advocate and know what they're doing and defend you, because you want the best when it comes to representing you in a very important situation. And obviously, a home transaction is the biggest transaction you have in your life.
Yeah.
And so you don't want to DIY it.
Nope.
You want somebody who knows what they're doing. And you're right, though. The challenge is there's so many agents out there that are giving the industry a bad rap.
Yep.
That's the hurdle that I feel like you, Johnny, and your team has to overcome on a regular basis.
So one of these episodes, we got to go into depth on how to fix that. My take is on it to renew your fees. It's about $1,100, maybe $1,200 a year. Which that's $100 a month. That's a lot of money, but that's a low barrier to entry for anybody looking to be a real estate agent. And there's some specific ways, maybe on next week's show where I think we should dive into how do we level up the industry and protect the consumer in the process.
Let's do it. So if I'm having chest pain, I don't try to YouTube it and DIY fix myself. I go to the professionals. I go to a doctor who's going to be able to diagnose and figure out what's wrong with me and get me on the track to health. If I'm trying to sell my home, do I try to DIY it? No, I go to the professional, Johnny Jennings with the Tom Daves team at Made for More Realty. They can get you at least 3 cash offers on your home in as-is condition. Just Google Johnny Jennings with Made for More Realty and get more for your home.